Today we are going to discuss about another Formula One team which disappeared after marking their presence as world champions. This team is special as one of the all-time greatest drivers, Michael Schumacher, won 2 of his world championships with his former F1 team. Most people know only that he won world championships with Ferrari. Actually, he won his first 2 world championships with a former F1 team called Benetton, which was more popular in the 90s. Today's video is dedicated to the Benetton racing team, which ended their presence in the grid exactly at the end of the 20th century. Before we proceed, hit the subscribe button and smash the bell icon for more exciting updates. Benetton Formula Limited was the name of this racing team, and it was simply referred to as Benetton in that period. They had a somewhat short history, which is even less than 2 decades. This constructor participated in the World Championship from 1986 to 2001. It was owned by a famous business family called the Benetton family, who run a worldwide chain of clothing stores of the same name. But the team was finally sold into the French car manufacturer Renault in 2000. But it was run under the same brand for 2 more seasons before becoming Renault for the 2002 season. Benetton had a start somewhat similar to the present-day Red Bull team. Being a worldwide business network, first they became a sponsor of Formula One teams like Red Bull did, and later entered their own F1 team. Benetton first appeared on a Formula One car back in 1983. They became a sponsor of the Tyrrell F1 team, which was popular at that period. Then they opened a partnership with the Alfa Romeo F1 team for the 1984 and 1985 seasons. They sponsored the Toleman F1 team, which was financially struggling in the 1985 season as well. The Toleman F1 team was unable to enter their cars into the first 3 races of the 1985 season, and entered only 1 car for the next 6 races of the season due to a dispute with the tire supplier. The only achievement for Toleman in that season was the pole position of that year's German Grand Prix recorded by Teo Fabi. Outside that whole 1985 season was a disastrous campaign for the British constructor, as they saw checkered flags only on 2 occasions out of 20 races of the season due to the reliability issues in the car. Toleman gave up Formula One as a constructor at the end of that season, and the Benetton family decided to enter into the sport rather than being a sponsor. At the time when the Benetton family acquired the ownership of Toleman, the British constructor has already designed their TG186 for the upcoming season. So they decided to run the same car for the upcoming season after rebranding it as Benetton B186. These were powered by the Toleman's hard engines, which were unreliable all over the previous season. So the Benetton management decided to introduce more powerful BMW M12 engines as the replacement to gain more power and reliability. Former Toleman driver Teo Fabi was retained as the driver for their first season under the brand Benetton. The second driver position was offered to Gerhard Berger, who decided to make a move from Arrows. With the BMW engine, the B186 showed a greater pace throughout the season. However, they suffered again with the reliability issues like Toleman in the previous season, recording 19 retirements. With the clever driving of Fabi and Berger that challenged the reliability, they were able to finish the season as 6th in the standings. They faced a huge problem in the engine department as BMW decided to provide power units only for Brabham in 1987. They managed to get a supply of Ford engines with the help of the Haas-Lola team's decision to stop their F1 operations. Despite switching to Ford engines, the B187 suffered again with engine failures at the beginning of the 1987 season. However, they made several changes to upgrade their engine and were able to yield more successful results by showing more consistency in the middle part of the season. At the end of the season, the British racing marque showed a small improvement by finishing the season as 5th in the Constructors' Championship, 1 place above relative to the previous season. Before their golden era in F1, they had a brief period of 2 seasons which showed a huge improvement. The B188 was once again powered with Ford engines, but this time not with turbocharged engines as they were banned. Instead, they were powered by naturally aspirated Ford engines. Benetton was never able to come out of these reliability issues again despite their changes in the engine configuration. The number of retirements was almost more than half of the races held in that year. However, they were able to finish the season as 3rd in the championship with 39 points. That was a huge achievement for the Whitney-based team, who were in the 3rd year of their Formula One championship. They faced huge trouble at the beginning of the 1989 season as the Ford engine of B189 was not ready to start the season. Benetton engineers tried to fit the engine of the B188 to the new chassis. However, it failed to leave the Benetton without any options outside of running the B188 again for the new season. But it was somewhat competitive even in the 1989 season, finishing the race at Imola with a podium by Alessandro Nannini. The B189 was finally ready to race in at the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix, and Nannini was able to win it, recording their first victory since 1986. The next season was a somewhat revolutionary season for the Whitney-based team, as the Benetton family decided to fire the whole management, appointing the businessman Flavio Briatore as the new team manager. Three-time world championship Nelson Piquet was added to the Benetton driver lineup for the 1990 championship. The Piquet-Nannini combination appeared to be more successful, with some impressive performance in the 1990 season. However, Nannini suffered a helicopter crash which damaged his right forearm, ending up his F1 career. He was replaced with Euroburn champion Roberto Moreno, and the Benetton team ended up season again as third in the championship with 71 points. Piquet was able to record victories in the final two races of the season with 6 other podiums. Piquet and Moreno were able to record Benetton's first ever 1-2 finish at that year's Japanese Grand Prix 2. But the next season was not successful for Benetton in terms of racing. However, they were able to get more financial stability with their new brand sponsor, Camel, which was an American cigarette company. An upgraded B190 was used for the first 2 races of the season, before introducing the B191 at the San Marino Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher was able to catch the attention of the Benetton administration after his impressive debut for Jordan at the Belgian Grand Prix. He was immediately hired by the Whitney-based team, replacing Roberto Moreno, as they wanted to add new energy to their driver lineup. Jordan protested against this move in the British court, and the decision was in favor of Benetton. At the beginning of the 1992 season, Tom Walkinshaw Racing acquired the stakes in the Benetton racing team. Tom Walkinshaw and Ross Brawn took over the engine department of the British racing team. They also moved their base from Whitney to Enstone. Their leading driver Piquet retired at the end of the 1991 season, and the more experienced Brabham driver Martin Brundle moved to the British team as his replacement. Continuing their practice from the previous 2 seasons, the upgraded B191 was used for the first 3 races of the season, before introducing the B192. They secured their 3rd place in the constructor standings with 91 points at the end of the 1992 season. It included 11 podiums and a victory at the historic Spa-Francorchamps. This is remarkable as the first victory of the 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher. Benetton's 1993 season began with a controversial decision to drop Martin Brundle in favor of veteran driver Riccardo Patrese. The B193 showed similar competitiveness to its predecessor, and they completed the 1993 season as 3rd in the championship for the 4th time in the team's brief history. It included 1 victory and 10 other podiums. All these good results within a period of 4 seasons motivate the whole Benetton crew to produce a car which would compete for the World Championship. Finally, the golden era of the Enstone-based team arrived. 1994 began with a change of their title sponsor, as Camel was replaced by the Japanese cigarette brand Mild 7. Patrese retired and JJ Leto was added to their 1994 driver lineup. However, his crash prior to the start of the season opened the way for Benetton test driver Jos Verstappen to enter the F1 arena. Schumacher was unstoppable with the B194, winning 6 out of the first 7 races. However, the Leto-Verstappen duo was totally uncompetitive compared to Schumacher within a similar type of setup. However, inexperienced and young Schumacher had to serve 2 race bans and 2 disqualifications in the latter part of the season. But this series of events didn't hurt Schumacher much, and he ended the season finally winning the World Championship. Even though they used Johnny Herbert in place of Verstappen in the latter part of the season, they were unable to steal the Constructors' Championship from Williams, who were more dominant at that period. However, that driver's title was controversial, as many rivals accused the Benetton team got electronic aid to become more competitive than their rivals. However, FIA or any other rival team failed to prove that, and the Benetton team officially became free of these accusations. Also, because Schumacher took out Damon Hill in the last race after hitting the wall himself, made this one of the most controversial world championships in Formula One history. With the success they enjoyed in the previous season, the Enstone-based team wanted to build a much stronger F1 car for the next season as well. So they switched to Renault power units, finally ending their 8-year partnership with Ford. At the beginning of the season, that decision appeared as foolish decision, as Schumacher came up with some negative comments about the B195. Benetton's B95 was easily outperformed by Williams' FW17 in the first part of the season. However, they came back strongly for the remainder of the season, and Schumacher was able to win 9 out of 17 races held in that year, finally winning back-to-back drivers' titles. Not only that, the Schumacher-Herbert duo was able to bring the Constructors' Championship to Enstone, finally ending the 3-year reign of the Williams F1 team. Benetton decided to race under the Italian flag in 1996, but they continued their operations from their UK base in Enstone. With Schumacher's surprising decision to join the Ferrari team for the 1996 season, a decline of the Benetton team started. Herbert was also dropped and he joined Sauber for the upcoming season. Former Benetton driver Gerhard Berger and John Alesi joined Benetton as their replacement for the 1996 season. The B196 was able to secure 10 podiums in that season, but Benetton failed to win a race for the first time since 1988. They dropped back to third in the constructor standings, and it was a disastrous campaign for Benetton compared to the previous season. Before the beginning of the 1997 season, some high-ranked figures within the Benetton crew, including Ross Brawn, left the team to join Schumacher's supportive staff at Ferrari. The B197 was never competitive enough to give a better fight to Ferrari or Williams at the top. This aggravated the problems with the Benetton team, which dropped further in the standings, finishing the season as third in the standings. However, Berger was able to win that year's German Grand Prix, and it is recorded as the last victory of the Benetton racing team. The 1998 season began with tons of changes for Benetton, which were in a downward trend. Berger retired and Alesi signed a deal with Sauber, so their test driver Alexander Wurz was promoted to a full-time seat, and Giancarlo Fisichella also joined with Benetton for the upcoming season. Renault put both Benetton and Williams in trouble for the upcoming season as they suddenly left the F1. So Benetton had to use the 1997 Renault engines redeveloped by Mechachrome. Long-term team boss Flavio Briatore was also replaced by David Richards to solve the ongoing issues with the team. Even though their new driver lineup was somewhat competitive with the B198 at the beginning of the season, the Benetton team gradually became uncompetitive at the latter part of the season. They dropped further in the standings and finished the season as fifth with 33 points in total. David Richards also left the team after staying one season with Benetton, and family member Rocco Benetton took over the control of the team. Benetton was in a disagreement about the future of the team, and at the same time the B199 brought them further into the decline. So the Enstone-based team ended the season as sixth in the standings with just 16 points. So it is recorded as the worst finish in the team's history. Benetton gave up on its F1 operations, and Renault took over the operations of the team prior to the start of the 2000 season. But the Benetton brand remained in the grid for 2 more seasons. As part of the restructuring, Flavio Briatore was reappointed as the team manager. The B200 was relatively much stronger compared to the previous 2 seasons, and they ended up the season as fourth in the constructor standings. The final season of the team with the Benetton brand was totally a disastrous campaign, as they barely qualified in the top 10 with their new Renault engine. Continued chassis development finally helped Benetton to end its F1 story with a podium finish. The team was fully branded as Renault for the 2002 season and was able to win the 2004 and 2005 championships with Fernando Alonso. The team was rebranded as Lotus F1 Team in 2012 and again turned back to usual French marque in 2016. Renault wanted to introduce their sport car brand to the grid and rebranded the team as Alpine in 2021, and ready to compete in the upcoming season with the same name. That is how the rise and fall of one of the most competitive Formula One teams in history happened. What do you think is the reason behind the sudden decline of Benetton? Comment your answers in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel to get more exciting facts related to Formula One. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.